That was probably the best intro I've ever had. My name is Rhett Greenhagen. I'm from McAfee Advanced Programs Group. This talk is a talk about my work previous. It's entitled Skip Tracing for Fun and Profit, How to Hide from the FBI. First time I gave this talk, it was in Oklahoma City at the IHOP for the local hacker meetup. I started the talk with, back then it was just how to hide from the FBI on a PowerPoint slide, right? We were in the back of the restaurant, about 8 or 10 of us, and the waitress walks in. She sees the PowerPoint slide, how to hide from the FBI, looks at the slides, looks at me, looks at the slides again, looks at everyone else, leaves. About 10 or 15 minutes later, Oklahoma County sheriffs show up. They start approaching, talking to us, and in Oklahoma, everyone carries a gun. So we start telling the county sheriff's officers we're carrying concealed firearms. We have permits, just to let you know. And my best friend at the time, we were all standing next to his vehicle, and the sheriff wanted to go look through his vehicle. He opens the back trunk, and there's heavy assault rifles, sniper rifles, ammunition, everything you could possibly imagine. So I can honestly say, at least one person has ended up on a domestic terrorist watch list from this talk. Just a quick brief. Worked in fusion recovery for different state, local, and federal agencies. Different types of legal application processes, such as warrants, were arranged through state attorneys and such. Oklahoma was the governing authority at the time. The cases covered in this talk were completed before working for my current employer. No state, local, federal, or international laws were broken at the time the trace was being located and investigated. Although laws change all the time, especially international laws, because it's still new, I'd consult with an attorney. So the agenda today, it's really just 6 generic things. What is skip tracing? A little bit about me. What I do now, the tools and techniques, the vignettes, and conclusion and outro. Skip tracing is all about taking the information on the left, either it be credit card information, utility bill, email addresses, and combining it into a format where you can find the real-time location of the target. So taking things like email address to get last login IP address, that's going to give you an identifier. Credit card bills, whenever you swipe a credit card, it gives you the transaction date, time, where it happened, located. You combine all that together to give an accurate profile. Talk about pivots just for a second, so I'll talk about pivots heavily. Some quick sample pivots. This is the avatar. Reverse Google searching the avatar to find unique matches. Specifically, if this person created the avatar himself or herself, and we Google search or reverse image search that back, maybe it's tied to a photo backup account or a tidy account. Another one would be the name. It's a unique Urdu name, spelled correctly, and it's unique enough that can be a pivot. Another pivot would be the sentence structure. The pronouns, the adjectives wasn't in place, how they're capitalizing the agency names, how he's using slashes instead of commas, how he's using one question mark instead of two. The entire sentence here is a pivot. Another one would be phrases with location or date data. A key piece here is Pakistan. Why didn't he say Iraq? Why didn't he say the Middle East? Why did he say Pakistan? Also giving the downvote 10 years ago. Why 10 years ago? Why not 5? Why not 15? That helps build a pivot. Another one would be the 1 month ago. He posted a month ago, right? That's going to be another date equivalent. Some quick things about me. My entire career has been in service of my country in one way or another. I've gone in and around everything in between what you consider a hacker background. Things like penetration testing, cyber counterintelligence, exploit development. Another thing that makes me really good at just this specifically is I was diagnosed with autism when I was younger, specifically Asperger's. And giving that perspective, it helps me see things in a different perspective. So little quick things about Asperger's is it helps you perceive information differently, such as patterns, specifically patterns. But if you don't know what autism is, or specifically what Asperger's is, I have some examples for you. This is what most people think is Asperger's, right? These characters. But I don't really think those pansies are good enough. This is what I consider someone with Asperger's. And if you're European, this is what you consider someone with Asperger's. How I got started with my brother when he was working in fusion recovery for a government agency, doing fusion recovery. Back then, I grew up on a farm in Oklahoma in the Midwest. I didn't have internet connection. I didn't know what hacking was. I actually had to walk to the library, the city over, to go to the library to be able to use the internet. Back then, the only real person that knew that I was good with computers was my brother. He started to realize, because some of his friends were in computers, and my oldest brother actually had a degree in computer science. So my brother came to me one day with a fugitive he was trying to apprehend and her information. And I said, "What do you want me to do with this? I don't know." He said, "Just look at it. Just look at it. If you find the target, I'll buy you Chick-fil-A and a video game." I said, "Okay, that's that deal." And took me about 30 minutes. Specifically on this target, I had to think, if I was a white piece of trash, where would I go? Another thing was the bank information that he gave me, just the bank statements about how much cash she pulled out. He said she has to make it from point A to point B and find out where she's staying, because I know she's in a hotel. I was like, okay. So what I did was I took the starting location, I worked it the way down, and I wrote a Python script to be able to compare where she drew money out along the highway and where was the last transaction she had. It was at a Waffle House on the highway, and she was staying across the street. I literally started on Google Maps and started calling the hotels in that area, and she was just staying at the first one. I just got lucky. So I'll be honest, some of this was just pure luck. Back then we had no idea what skip tracing was. Me and my brother knew what it was. So about what I do now, I work for the McAfee's Advanced Programs Group, the APG. We specifically work with government and private industry to perform research. Specifically things like cyber counterintelligence, intelligence gathering, profiling malicious computer hackers based on their malicious code. So this is the traditional special operations model for most military operations. If you look on the left-hand side, this is pretty much what you see in a wartime setting. Things like negotiated settlements, large and minor military skirmishes, and then underneath the clandestine operations, you see things like sapping moral, espionage, things like that. The APG, if you flip it on the hacker side of it, the APG works in the things in the red. Social engineering to gain access, trying to counter these things. So next, we're going to talk about the tools and techniques, things that I use to specifically look for a target's real-time location, or help get to that point. One of my favorite tools is Maltego. Specifically using Maltego to interact with data mining tools to render directed graphs for link analysis. Using casefile to be able to share that information between different analysts, because casefile will take the actual Maltego graphs and be able to input it and add notes, things like images and videos. And also, Maltego can input from multiple sources, either be copy and paste, find a text document and upload it. Maltego is a good one. Another good one is Palantir, the way Palantir pulls information and graphs it for you. Specifically, like things like the geolocation, being able to put cell phone data into the map and tell you where it's consigned. Another one is NetGlub. Even though it's no longer supported, you can find some patches out there for it. NetGlub is an amazing tool. Another one, just a quick mention is Python. Specifically, if you're working with a large amount of data, you need to be able to manipulate the data to do what you want, and also to be able to work with APIs that pull information back down. Another one is the Google Map APIs, specifically for plotting information and geolocation identifiers. Using it along with cell phone data, such as walking, and if they were using a taxi, if they were on a bus, those things will help with the Google Maps API. Another one is SET, or the Social Engineering Toolkit, using it to manipulate website data or manipulate the website itself, sending fake SMS messages and pretending to be a different persona. Another really good tool set is Zelly's Intel Techniques website, or Advancing OSINT. The amount of tools he possesses on his site is amazing. specifically for using advanced open source intelligence and advanced open source intelligence, as well as the automating OSINT website. There's some amazing, amazing tools on those sites. The guys do a very, very, very good job. Another thing to mention is Google Alerts. Using Google Alerts to see if new information has been published online can also turn that around in the attacker's favor. Using it along with different APIs and different tools, you can see if someone's Google searching a specific action. Attackers in their Google Alerts will put their MD5, their hash, anything that could possibly be searched by an analyst or incident response firm or a forensic analyst. These are some of the cases that I liked, or pretty much the cases I could talk about. I've got 2 listed on here. Quickly go through them. First one was Justin Keating. I was given the full information, social address, phone number, etc. He was arrested for assault. At the time, nothing was known for all the addresses and phones. The last known address was in Oklahoma City. Maltego comes back with a Steam account linked with phone numbers. I didn't know what it was at the time, but if you see the top right, it is a Steam profile and the phone numbers on the left, and all the associations that he was adding based off his Steam profile. So when I first started, I looked at the Steam profile. I pulled it based off the email address that was associated with it. So from there, I found his Steam profile. I saw he was playing Guild Wars at the time. From Guild Wars, I wanted to locate his in-game persona, which I did it through another site, which ties back to his Steam account. So he was linking the Steam account as well as with his character's name. From his character's name, I do a quick search, and using NetClub, I'm actually to see the sites that he's posting on as that alias. On the aliases, I also see the clan he's playing with, what server he's, or not what server, but the people he's playing with, the people that he's trying to recruit, et cetera, et cetera. So what I do is I go buy a character on that server to be able to go and play with him in game, try and gain his trust, be able to talk to him, start a combo, start a dialogue. So what I do is I launch the game, and in Guild Wars you can actually do a search by the person name and taking the character name. So all I did was right-click teleport. Come to find out, after reading all that information, like the one right here in the bottom, is they were looking for a healer, specifically a healer, because they didn't have one. So I went and watched a quick YouTube video on how to heal, and come to find out I was just hitting 234, 234, 234, and clicking people's name to heal them. So when I teleport them in the game, I just start doing what the YouTube video told me to do. Right-click 234, 234, and heal them. And they're like, oh my God, you're so amazing, you're so good. So getting their trust, they invited me to their Matrilo server. We started talking over and over. And this guy was just in random conversation talking about how he's on the run, how he's so smart, and all these other things. So the thing was, I was trying to gain access to the Matrilo server and to administrative privilege so I can get their IP addresses and be able to pull all the IP addresses of the user, specifically the targets. I couldn't do that, so I used a denial of service attack to take down the Matrilo server and be able to try and get them to go somewhere where I knew where I could get their information. Back then, Steam allowed PCAPs in UDP format to be able to actually pull the IP address. So doing that for double confirmation, I did the packet capture as well as with the voice, as well as I sent a phishing link. They were talking about something. I think it was what type of build I was using. Excuse me. So ready to go and plan this, I created the link with the Google tools, and if you see the link at the top, that's the link that I sent them. Would go to that site and me be able to actually pull the IP addresses as well as the geolocation of where they were. So this is actually the packet capture of double verification, verifying two, just in case someone was behind a VPN or a proxy, just so I could verify. So taking that information, I plotted it to Google Maps, and I see that he's currently in Lawton. Taking the master merge is a Python tool that combines data and looks for fluctuation and the differences. I see the link they clicked as well as the names and the IP addresses. So from there, I see from the master merge of his stuff, I see he's friends with this guy. And he's the only friend that he has in Lawton, Oklahoma. So what I do is I find the phone number on the guy's Facebook profile, and I try and see where he's currently located. So from there, I send a text to the number through the social engineering toolkit, spoofing the guy's number, trying to get more information. I sent something like, are we still on for night? Are you going to order food? Things like that. From taking that to the address and giving that to the tactical team, they were able to arrest him and apprehend him, and there's the news article. Some things that this person could have done was, first of all, not talk shit. He would talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, especially online, thinking that no one was listening or watching or even cared. Should have changed his phone numbers. Not using the same phone number over and over and over. Should have had at least 3 or 4 different either voice over IP or actually hardware burners. Been more careful on his online presence, posting specifically posting with his email address, which he never changed. Completely removed all social media accounts, or at least put misinformation into social media accounts since he was logging into them. Been more cautious of telling people in video games he was a fugitive. Not posted his email address on the recruiting thread for a video game forum. Just being overall stupid and committing multiple felonies. Don't escape prison and stay in the same fucking city as the prison, and don't be stupid. The next target was Colin Hoover. Long story short, he meets a woman using a dating app, right? Moves in with said woman. Said woman has a little boy. In a several-month time period, he's molesting the boy, and whenever the boy goes and tells his mother, he murders the boy in the most gruesome way possible. So, after a long period of time, from state to state, local and state federal law enforcement is trying to find this guy. So at the time, I was given his info, social address, phone numbers, etc., what he was arrested for. His last known address was in Tulsa. Friends say he's in Albany looking for a job in chemical engineering. Based off that's what his degree was in and what he was looking for in general. You see his presence on Craigslist, specifically in the not in the men for men section, but looking for a job in local jobs. We have his resume from a Maltego search. Maltego shows his resume on a job posting site along with his email address. So from there, using Maltego, I'm seeing the Facebook presence of him and his friends, people he's communicating with. From there, using Palantir, I try and combine that as well as with the IP address of things that he's trying to communicate with, type of computers, type of cell phones. From there, I use master merge to try and combine all the data and try and look for differences. From there, I see a bunch of misinformation, specifically bad pivots. The type of information he was giving, like saying he was in Kansas. Come to find out, he's actually paying this guy to lie to law enforcement, saying he was somewhere else. So that's another pivot. In the bottom, talking about Ontario. That was from a job posting. He was posting on I think it was like Craigslist Ontario or something like that. Another one was a website for a website forum specifically for a hobby he was interested in, trying to put misinformation on that, and registering numerous websites with fake email addresses. I'm talking in the hundreds. So if you see the registration information, there's his email address, but it's co-assigned to a foreign country or even a different state or city in the U.S. But if you ignored all that and actually see the Google IP is telling us he's in Albany, New York, specifically the type of login activity he's using on Gmail compared to the types of emails he's sending and receiving. So from there, use the exploit code specifically on the email address from the job postings, the one that he created. From there, get the last login IP address, specifically from using an exploit. Taking the last login IP address as well, trying to figure out where he's located. So from there, being able to log in, going to take out, I think it was, back then it was takeout.google.com, and downloading his entire history. Specifically, things like his location history, his Google search history, and his Google voice calls. With the location history, it's telling me where his phone was when he was moving, if he was walking, driving, based on the speed. Sometimes it will match with public transportation. Another one is the Google search history, as well as the date and time. Being able to see the Google searches he was providing, such as job post or chemical engineering job, Ontario, Canada, salary 240, et cetera, et cetera. Taking that Google search history and combining it with pivots you already have will help you build a better profile. The Google voice calls will show the numbers, SMS sending back and forth to try and help for geolocation. Taking that all together from the archive, it shows us we're actually able to see the address where he's staying at because it's saved. It's the only one that's actually saved in his location history. So from there, we have to draw him out to actually apprehend him. So we see where he's applying for a chemical engineering job through a specific website such as Monster. From there we build another profile. So from master merge, it's extremely evident that he needs money. We take his Google search history, combine it with his resume, and create a job posting that's specifically tailored just for him. Using sets, we cloned an existing website. I think it was like from India or something like that, and changed some of the phone numbers on it specifically to the voice actors that we had paid to act as recruiters. These voice actors had a script of things that they would follow. A question: if he asks, think of it like a network diagram. If duct tape works, yes, no. If he says yes, yes, no, and then a script all the way down. Paying the voice actors specifically to work as a what's the word? Social engineer. You have to make sure that they know they have the most accurate template they can follow, and know how to answer questions if he asks them, such as where are you located, or something that's not on the script. They didn't know something to respond and be able to come up with the time. So from there, we create the monster profile and upload the job description. So from the job description, some of the biggest things that you need to change. Excuse me one second. One of the biggest things is making sure the job lists as a contract or a potential for direct hire. People that are on the run or trying to hide themselves, they're not going to look for a full-time position. The longer you are at a location, the more information you're going to give colleagues you're working with, give people more identifiers that can be used to track you down. Also, the thing about the small team environment, the less people that you work with, the less informants that you have that would inform on you to law enforcement. The thing about the requirements specifically is it needs to match, but not 100% perfect. You don't want the target to think, oh, hey, that's a copy and paste from my resume. That's not good. You want to put specific things that anyone can do, like be able to use Word. Well, it isn't me, but be able to use Word, Excel, basic things that you'd find on every job posting. Another thing that we put in this was some travel required. The less time that you're spending in the office is better, specifically if you're trying to run for law enforcement. Same thing, it goes back to talking about small team environment. The more time you're on the road, the less people you're talking to, less information you're giving them that can be used against you. The email goes back to a domain that we created, and the email address is going back to us, not the voice actors. The voice actors' job are just to answer the Skype call and pretend to be the recruiter. When it comes to email, we want to be able to make up things on the fly. Maybe we need to send them a PDF with a malicious attachment, or not a PDF, but send them an email with a malicious attachment, or come up with a specific paragraph to try and lure them in more. Another thing at the very bottom, we welcome walk-in candidates. If you are specifically looking for, trying to think of the word, if you're looking for I don't know how to explain it. If you're looking to be more anonymous or something that's specifically made to target you, they're less likely to have a office front or a setup location. So what we did was once he responded to the web posting almost immediately, we sent him back a PDF with more about the company, benefits, things like that, as well as the malicious attachment specifically looking for his IP address. And also with the malicious attachment, allowed us to see if he was applying anywhere else, specifically if he was applying at other places and maybe he had a job offer. So we'd call those places and pretending to be him and cancel the interview, or say I'm sick, I can't make it. We were trying to make sure that no matter what, he was going to come to this interview. Gaining access to the system allowed us to do that. So from there, once the email was sent and he sent it back, the tactical team would set up in the office building that they rented out, and in the Skype call. So the Skype call was important because he called the recruiter before the interview time and said, "Hey, can I stop by? I've got time." If you're trying to keep someone on their toes, they're more likely to try and improvise and try and build up the timetable. So from there, lured the target to said location and was arrested. This is the timeline. Specifically for this target, it took a long period of time, so it was good to map it out. And there's the news article of the arrest. Possible counters. Using a VPN service every time you connect to an outside website application. Making sure that you remember the lies that you tell. And whenever you do lie, specifically for this target, is keep it broad and generic. Because the most amount of lies you have to keep up with, and the more lies you tell, the harder it is to keep up. Don't use the same social and think that changing one digit helps. He was going to employment places and changing one digit. He was changing it from I think the middle digit. He was just flipping them. But the thing is, whenever you're doing income tax forms specifically for the U.S., it tries to match the social and date of birth as well as the name and try and correct it for you. Because I mean, if you think old people, they're making accidents, or even there's more dyslexic people in the States. It's just a behavioral thing. So my quick outro, some of the things that I want to talk about was 100 Ways to Disappear and Live Free. It's a PDF that's out on the internet. It gives a lot of different things to use to counter and skip tracing and counter intelligence gathering. Another book is How to Steal a Job. How to Steal a Job is a really, really good book, specifically for behavioral and psychology, and using non-linguistic programming. If you have any questions or comments or want anything else about the talk, you can find me on LinkedIn as Rhett Greenhagen. Is there any questions? Questions? No?
Questions? Everybody's good in OPSEC? You sure? He will maybe find you.
What a shit thing to say.
Hi, that was really interesting, even though sometimes you really speak fast.
I think everyone in this room could say that, but
I'm just interested. I've heard that Maltego is especially useful in US, maybe not so much in the other parts of the world. Can you maybe, do you have some experience on that?
So I'll actually agree with that. From not from the target sets, but mostly the servers that Maltego uses to be able to gather information. I've actually heard of researchers in Germany and South Africa using their own virtual private server, and then paying Maltego to transfer the Maltego indexing service to their virtual private server. That tries to help with collection and trying to speed things up, but it's when it comes to a collection standpoint and being able to index information, it's really information that's out there. Specifically from US is mostly social security numbers, health insurance records. But when it comes to European Union, it's knock-lock IDs. Actually, that's really the closest thing I could think of was knock-lock IDs. But it's like the social for the U.S. Like a personal identification number.
Sorry.
Alternative.
Yeah, for Europe, or some alternative you can think of.
I'm not trying to sound disrespectful, but just off the top of my head. If you think of, I think it's like people find, think of what the US uses, like whitepages.com, right? We have our own websites like that for intelligence gathering. I would do a quick Google search and see what's available for your region, specifically for like phone numbers, things like that, and compare. I'll be honest with you, whenever it comes to targeting, looking for European citizens, specifically in Eastern Europe and South Central Asia, it really goes based off whatever I can find at the time. I'll go quickly buy a membership to a website just as they're going to give me data, because if you think of things like LexisNexis, it's specifically targeted to North America. It's not. There's still records out there in Africa, in East Asia, but it's specifically made for Western countries. Yeah.
So, are there further questions? No. Then, thanks very much.
Thank you.